Black Bombers and Boy George. With John and Julie away, I was seeing a lot more of Eddie Wilkes, a guy who I worked with at the MTC and who lived a few roads away from me. Ed had turned me on to the B-52s and we shared a lot of the same taste in bands. Despite trying to be Mr. Rock and Roll, my mum was still making me go to church, and I'd leave the house and go round to Eddie's instead, preferring to worship at the altar of Cindy Wilson than Jesus Christ. We would listen to some records and then listen to the Sunday countdown to the number one record on Radio 1. We would go to gigs and go drinking and clubbing together, and I was with Eddie the day I became a man, 20th of May 1981. Eddie and I spent my 18th birthday at Rotters watching the psychedelic fairs and support band Wasted Youth. The fairs were promoting the album Talk 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 and took the roof off despite them playing in a gaudy disco. The reason I mention this gig is never in my wildest dreams did I think that I'd be spending my 21st birthday sitting at the same table as the fairs in a nightclub in Washington, D.C. I recently saw them perform the entire album again at the Kentish Town Forum. This seemed a little like coming full circle, as when I had visited London to see John and Julie, they lived in Falkland Road in Kentish Town all those years ago. I went to a Valentine's night at the warehouse with Eddie and we both pulled. He pulled his future wife Lynn, and I pulled a girl called Kat. We started going out together, which meant me spending many hours on the bus between Norris Green and Egbert. We shared a love of Bowie and would sit in the front room of our mum's house and listen to vinyl all night. The jostling on the sofa became more and more physical as the weeks went by, and the frisson of excitement was definitely enhanced knowing her mother was sitting in the front room. There must have been an unwritten house rule though, because she never came in. Kat's mum took in lodgers. There were young lads who'd signed for Everton. When I was seeing Kat, I didn't know the quiet lad I passed in the hall would become a future England international. He'd often be chatting to his girlfriend on one side of the door, whilst Kat and I were rolling round on the carpet on the other side. He was probably on the phone the night the Kat stepped out of a light blue pilot's jumpsuit to reveal a lacy black underwear combo, including stockings and suspenders. She had some bottle. How could she have explained the lingerie display if her mother had walked in? At least I would have had a justified excuse for sitting there with an erection. I felt like I was visiting a Playboy shoot. I was in her house the night that Liverpool won the European Cup against Real Madrid. Her mum was out for the evening, and I was more interested in losing my virginity in front of the fire rather than watching Liverpool in front of the telly. I lost it, and the Reds won it. The Virgins Club lost a member, and my football club won another trophy. This meant the relationship was now officially serious. We went out for a good few months and spent loads of time together, but for some reason my interest began to dwindle. I stopped calling and stopped turning up and took a cowardly exit rather than doing the right thing. Writing this now and reflecting on my cowardice, I'm still ashamed of my actions, and rightly so. Kat was sound and didn't deserve to be treated like that, and my regrettable actions meant that I've never taken the easy way out since, in any situation. I learned a life lesson, but it was bad that she had to learn one too. However, having no girlfriend did mean that I could spend more time doing music. I got a call from John asking me if I was interested in doing a bit of sparking work down in London. A woman at the end of his road had a furniture warehouse that was in need of new lighting, and he asked me if I was interested. Well, to be honest, he told me I was interested. The lure of the bright lights and a chance to visit the Camden Palace was enough of a reason, although I was still an apprentice and wasn't sure if my electrical skills stretched to wiring up a warehouse. I went down and we started work. The job wasn't as big as I feared, and with John's help we got stuck into it on the Friday, intending to try and get it all done so we could hang out all day Saturday. The woman we were working for was a bit of a hippie, but very nice and very forthcoming with the tea and biscuits. After everyone else's working day had finished, John and I were still at it, and our employer brought over some more refreshments, but this time there was something alongside the biscuits. 2 black capsules. We inquired what they were, and she told us it would help us carry on working when we were tired. We took them, and were both speeding off our tits within half an hour. We didn't know at the time, but the tablets were black bombers, named because they were given to pilots during the war to make sure they stayed alert when on missions to drop bombs on Germany. The work rate was upped and we finished about 2 in the morning and went home to try and sleep, only to fail. The next night we went to the Palace. Formerly the Music Machine, the Camden Palace was the hippest club in town, and when we entered it wasn't difficult to see why. Amazing lights and lasers and a brilliant sound system, all of which was somewhat enhanced after we'd secured a couple more bombers from the hippie chick. I went home and back to work on Monday, full of tales from that London. A guy I worked with called Mark Palucci and I were both fans of Culture Club after hearing their debut single White Boy, and I have to admit I thought Boy George was amazing. We went down to London together to visit John and Julie with the intention of buying some clothes to dress like our hero. A woman called Sue Close had designed some of George's clobber, and her silkscreen designs on white vest and trousers were great and available on the King's Road, so Mark and I spent a large chunk of change on a new wardrobe. That night we went to the Palace, fueled on black bombers and beer. We were walking around in the upper levels and walked into the Star Bar. This wasn't exclusive, but a place where you could see the odd familiar face. Who do we see as we turn the corner? Boy George. It was difficult to say which of us was more gushing on meeting our current idol, and it didn't take long for George to suss out that he was speaking to Johnny Go Fast as well. We cracked under interrogation and admitted our guilt, and he gave us a short lecture about the evils of drugs and that it would lead to no good. Some years later, I would meet George in a nightclub in New York and remind him of this meeting and how he'd given us both a lecture. He obviously didn't remember and said in a rather camp fashion, "Ooh, I'm one to talk." I always thought this was an odd thing for him to say because his image was squeaky clean and I never imagined that he would have dabbled in anything. A few years later I realised what he was talking about when it was revealed in the tabloids that George was now friendly with Mr. Brown and his secret was out and his world was unravelling and splashed across the tabloids. I would return to the Palace to play a gig and a PA with Frankie, and Mark Ped and I would spend many a night in there whilst we were living together and recording Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. I still visit the place now to see the odd gig, but feel somewhat out of place. Last time I was there, it was a Friday night, and 4 of us went there to see a band. 4 guys, in their 40s, in the company of about 1,000 pissed-up kids under 25. We looked like undercover busies and stuck out like a sore thumb, but embarrassment won't stop me enjoying a gig. I still get a buzz going down the short slope into the auditorium because the place holds such great memories for me.